Lately, there's been a lot of hero shooters that have been announced. Marvel Rivals, Sony's Concord, Star Wars Hunters, and Valve's project that no one's really sure what exactly it is, but apparently they're working on one, so hey, it counts technically, and hopefully these leaks are actually real and we're not just going off bad news. What's up everybody, my name is Marks, and let's take a look at why we are starting to see so many of these hero shooters be in development and all kind of release along the same period of time, because to me, it was a little bit strange that one after another, these guys were just being announced left, right, and center, and then suddenly there's like 4 new projects in development that are all kind of in that hero shooter genre, where it feels like we haven't really had one in a really long time. And so, let's explore exactly why might that just be the case. Starting things off, of course, hero shooters, if you're not familiar what those are. Well, according to Wikipedia, a hero shooter is a subgenre of shooter game that emphasizes hero characters that have distinct abilities and or weapons that are specific to them. A hero shooter can be a first-person shooter or a third-person shooter. Man, I should like narrate for like dictionary.com. I feel like I did a pretty good job with that whole reading definition. But just for the sake of this video, I want to narrow that down a little bit more, because technically it can include games like Rainbow Six Siege or like Valorant, pretty much any game where, you know, you've got abilities and stuff like that. I feel like even Destiny would kind of fit into that sandbag. So once again, for the sake of this video, when I say hero shooter, what I mean to say is it is a competitive multiplayer game with different playable characters, all with unique abilities, also unique weapons as well. And the gameplay is focused around these objectives, whether or not it's around like flags or capture points or cards, all of that type of stuff. And it's not just like a plant the bomb and kaboom and that's the only game mode. And quite frankly, the biggest hero shooter that currently exists to this day is, well, my favorite game, Overwatch. I don't know if it's my favorite game anymore, but it's definitely the game that I've put the most hours of my life into at this point. I guess also too, it's Overwatch 2 now, so, you know, Overwatch 2, you kind of get the gist of it. And really, it's important to kind of take a look back at what this genre, how this genre even started, because Overwatch actually pulls a lot of its roots from Valve's Team Fortress 2, which really was kind of the original hero shooter. Essentially, Team Fortress 2 saw 2 teams, the red team and then the blue team, and then basically you could choose between offensive, defensive, and supporting different types of characters, and you would just fight over the objectives, pretty much creating the entire genre as we know it of what these hero shooters really can be like. And then the next generation was kind of interesting, because then we saw the rise of Battleborn, which was developed by Gearbox, most famously known for making the Borderlands series, and then Overwatch, developed by Blizzard. Now the thing is that these 2 types of games kind of went in 2 different directions with how they were inspired by previous things. Battleborn actually borrowed a lot of mechanics from more traditional MOBA games like League of Legends, Dota, all of that type of stuff, and so it was still like the hero shooter element where you were playing different characters, but it had this element of leveling yourself up as time went on and getting items, and you know, there were a couple of different modes, but the competitive mode was kind of the thing that they were really trying to sell. Overwatch, on the other hand, kind of leaned into the abilities more on like those cooldowns and, you know, the ultimates and all of that type of stuff. And it really felt like Blizzard's idea with Overwatch was to make Team Fortress 2, but like the shiny, polished, brand new spanking version of Team Fortress 2. Team Fortress 2 for the next generation of people. And as time would go on, we would see which one of these formulas was going to work better. And spoiler alert, it was Overwatch. As a matter of fact, Battleborn really did come out and try to compete, but just as a game itself, it wasn't that well polished and it felt a little bit janky, and the player base just never really took off. Eventually the servers were discontinued too, so you can't even play it even if you wanted to try at this point. And so Overwatch became this brand new spanking thing, obviously backed by Blizzard Entertainment, which at the time was like making waves and all that type of stuff. So Overwatch was their brand new IP and it took the world by storm. Talked about this before, but you know, there was the whole esports side of Overwatch. It won some game awards. It set the new bar for what the hero shooters could be. And the thing was, Overwatch came out in 2016, and so for this long stretch of time, it didn't feel like any other hero shooter was ever going to come out and really challenge the throne, if you will, that was known as Overwatch in the hero shooter genre. Don't get me wrong, with the success of Overwatch, some companies decided to try and make their own hero shooter to see whether or not they could compete. I mean, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but there was this game called Lawbreakers, where they were kind of trying to take the hero shooter, but take the aesthetic of like a Call of Duty, because at this point, Call of Duty was all about like flying and tech and all that type of stuff. And to be fair, I actually played one of the demos of Lawbreakers at a bunch of conventions years ago, and it was a really fun game, but it just couldn't really hold up and maintain itself against the titan that was Overwatch. This is gonna sound really funny now, but like Overwatch was a very mechanically, very technically good game that a lot of people were really into. It was very popular for a good reason at that time. But of course, then we talk about the fall of Overwatch, which is the release of Overwatch 2, where they cut down the 6 and made it a 5. And then they just released it and they weren't really sure what they were doing. They wanted to do the story mode, but it never really came to fruition. Just the whole launch of Overwatch 2 in general was mishandled, and as a result, we saw Overwatch really decline in popularity. Of course, at the exact same time, other games like Rainbow Six Siege and Valorant started to really climb back up the ladder, but once again, focusing in on Overwatch, now Overwatch 2, it felt like the titan of the hero shooter genre is no longer really a titan anymore. It just feels like this weird kid off to the side who used to be popular, but that was like back in high school, and we graduated high school like 6 years ago now, man. And I have a sneaking suspicion that when a lot of these other game devs saw what was happening with Overwatch, you know what? Suddenly, the hero shooter genre, this is something that they might be able to actually enter into and not have as much competition because of how Overwatch 2 was kind of handled, and the community reception was extremely poor for it. And with Overwatch being down, this probably was what allowed projects like the games kind of coming out and announced at the, as I said at the beginning of this video, to see a potential opportunity to get into the hero shooter space and try to take over that market. Because ultimately, when you think about it, hero shooters are a lot of fun. And the fact that not as many people are into Overwatch anymore and they're looking for a brand new experience, this is a good time to see whether or not you can develop the next thing that could potentially elevate the hero shooter genre into what comes next. And so, cut to 2024, we've got Marvel Rivals, like I said, Valve's new hero shooter, Sony's Concord, Star Wars Hunters, all of these games probably on the back end of development now, because they probably started development when Overwatch 2 was released and they saw, ooh, this is an opportunity. It almost feels like we're back into the gold rush era of hero shooters where, you know, all of these companies are trying to just enter in with their own ideas and see whether or not they can really snag a big slice of the pie. Taking a look at what we've got in front of us already, I mean, Marvel Rivals had a beta, but you can see that the game still requires a little bit of polish, a little bit of balance, and it doesn't feel like a complete product just quite yet. In my opinion, the most exciting project that was announced was Valve's new hero shooter, because when you think about it, the fact that Valve created Team Fortress 2 in the first place, okay, technically, there were separate people who made Team Fortress, but then Valve acquired them, and then they made Team Fortress 2. It's a whole thing, but regardless, it's under the Valve umbrella. And so, to see them really enter into the game dev space again for the hero shooter genre, I think there's a lot of opportunity and potential there. But also, just to be honest with you, I'm a little bit worried about these next wave types of hero shooters that are entering into the market, because, like I said, it was companies seeing opportunity to enter into it and try to see whether or not they can make their own type of hero shooter to make themselves a bunch of money. And fundamentally, when you take a look at all of these different things, there's a huge brand attached to it. Marvel, Valve, Sony, as well as Star Wars. I mean, these are really big brands, and you know that the companies are just using those like brand recognition things to try and attract players to get into their game whenever they come out. But in my opinion, that's never going to actually result in a good game. If these companies are kind of coming into this and just like, yeah, you know, we're going to make the next brand new hero shooter, and it's going to be Marvel based. I'm sorry I'm shitting on Marvel Rivals, but I was really not impressed with what I saw. There still has to be a lot of care that goes into the actual game to make it fundamentally fun, to really allow players to kind of come into it and play the game and have a good time. At the base of it, it's still a game. No matter how cool the IP is, no matter how many people you attract, if they come into it and they see kind of an unfinished product, or, oh, this game kind of feels a little bit like a cash grab just because it's like new and, you know, using a familiar IP, it's going to turn a lot of players away. You know, if the new games don't at least try and match that level of quality before, like, underneath the skin of all of the brand recognition, then I think we're just gonna be seeing more half-baked attempts at trying to steal a slice of the hero shooter pie without anything really making waves, which to me would be really disappointing. I am so hoping though that these new games are going to be coming out, and they are going to be a lot of fun, because the world wins when companies go in and they make fun video games for other people to play. The world doesn't win when the companies go in there and just try and take your money instead, which, you know, Overwatch kind of did that as well. But I am hopeful that, you know, we're going to see some cool games coming out over the horizon, because there is a real opportunity here. Rounding this back to the start of the video, I do think that there is a really good opportunity, and if a really innovative hero shooter game does come out, I think it could really interrupt the market, and that would be really cool to see. But okay, that wraps up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry I'm so much of an Overwatch fanboy, but like, I played that game a lot when I was in high school, and now I reconnected with my friends and we play it together all the time, like from high school, so it's kind of like our thing, even though, you know, I'm not the best at it. It's still fun to me, okay? Come on. But let me know what your hero shooter is. Better yet, do you agree with my definition of the hero shooter, specifically about the objective base? Because I was doing a lot of research online, and a lot of people were saying Rainbow Six is one, and I'm like, that doesn't fit my personal definition. But leave a comment down below if you do disagree, but if not, then like and subscribe for the channel, really helps out. And of course, we'll catch you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and see you guys later. Okay, bye-bye.